All right, when I say the word skeleton, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably something, well, kind of static, right? Like a plastic model from a science classroom or maybe a Halloween decoration. Well, get ready because we're about to completely shatter that image. Today, we're diving into the incredibly dynamic, living world that exists inside your bones. So let's just ask the question straight up. Is your skeleton just a lifeless scaffold? A simple frame to hang your muscles and everything else on? Well, the answer, as you're about to see, is a huge, resounding no. It is so much more than that. I mean, the truth is, your bones are working around the clock, doing jobs you might never have guessed. They are a literal blood cell factory. They're a mineral bank, hoarding critical stuff like calcium. They're your personal bodyguard, protecting your most vital organs. And yeah, of course, they're the levers that let you move. Your skeleton is an absolutely incredible multitasker. So here's the main idea I want you to grab onto for this entire explainer. Forget the static frame. I want you to picture your skeleton as a bustling, living city, a metropolis that is constantly under construction, with old buildings being torn down and new ones going up 24/7. Okay, so every city needs two basic things, right? It needs building materials and it needs a construction crew. So let's start by meeting the components, the crew and the materials that make up this amazing biological city. So what is bone actually made of? It's this fascinating combination. About 65% of it is mineral. You can think of that as the concrete. It's what gives bone its incredible hardness and strength. But the other 35% is organic, mostly a protein called collagen. Now, this is the secret ingredient. It's like the steel rebar you find inside concrete, giving the whole structure crucial flexibility, so your bones can bend a little without snapping. And here they are, our construction crew. On one side, we've got the builders, the osteoblasts. Their whole job is to lay down fresh, new bone. And on the other side, we've got the demolition crew, the osteoclasts. They're the experts at clearing away old, worn-out bone. It's this constant push and pull, this tug of war between building up and breaking down that keeps your entire skeleton healthy and strong. But wait, who's in charge? Who's telling these crews where to work? Well, meet the osteocytes. These are the site managers of our bone city. What's so cool is that they're actually former builders who've become embedded inside the bone. And from there, they form this huge communication network, sensing stress and strain and signaling to the crews exactly where reinforcements are needed the most. So, how does this whole crew actually work together? Well, it's all part of a process called remodeling. And this isn't just something that happens when you break a bone. No, this is a constant, lifelong renovation project happening inside you right now. And here's the part that just blows my mind. This process never, ever stops. From the moment you're born until your last day, your skeleton is in a constant state of turnover. It is systematically replacing old, tired bone with fresh, strong material to keep the entire structure sound. So where does all this construction happen? Not everywhere at once. That would be chaos. Instead, it takes place at millions of tiny, microscopic construction sites scattered all over your skeleton. They're called bone multicellular units, or BMUs. Just think of each BMU as a tiny little pop-up work site where a perfectly coordinated team of demolishers and builders gets to work on one small patch of bone. Now, as you can imagine, coordinating millions of these little work sites is incredibly complex. It all relies on this really sophisticated communication system. You can think of it as a delicate dance of go and stop signals. There's this biological messaging system called rank/rankL, and it's basically how the different cells talk to each other, telling the demolition crew exactly when and where to get started. This whole cycle is just beautifully illustrated right here. First, the site managers, our osteocytes, tag an area of old or damaged bone. Then, the demolition crew shows up for what's called resorption, carving out all the old material. After that, the site gets cleaned up and prepped, and finally, the builders move in to lay down a fresh foundation of new bone. And this four-step cycle, it happens over and over and over again, your entire life. But this perfectly balanced dance doesn't last forever. After we hit our peak bone mass, usually in our late 20s, a really subtle shift starts to happen. And that shift is captured by this one little number, -0.7%. That's the average amount of bone we start to lose each year, because the demolition crew starts to work just a little bit faster than the building crew can keep up. So what happens when that delicate balance tips too far? What happens when faults start to show up in the foundation of our skeletal city? Let's take a look. Well, the most common result of this imbalance is osteoporosis. And here's the really important thing to understand. The bone material itself is perfectly normal. The concrete and rebar are still good quality. The problem is a problem of quantity. There's simply not enough of it, which makes the entire structure dangerously fragile. Okay, take a close look at this. This is what healthy bone looks like up close. See how it's this dense, complex, highly interconnected network? It is a beautifully engineered structure designed for maximum strength. Now compare that to this, osteoporotic bone. The difference is just stark, isn't it? The little struts have thinned out, connections have been completely lost, and huge gaps have appeared. That beautiful, strong architecture has become fragile and weak, making it dangerously easy to fracture. So, what can cause this balance to tip so dramatically? Well, a major factor, especially for women, is menopause. The drop in estrogen that happens totally messes with that rank/rankle communication system we were just talking about. It basically cranks up the volume on the go signal for the demolition crew. The osteoclasts become hyperactive, and demolition starts to seriously outpace construction. But an imbalance in the crew isn't the only thing that can go wrong. Sometimes the problem is with the building materials themselves. A condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone disease, is a perfect example of this. In this case, the body has trouble making good quality type 1 collagen. So that steel rebar we talked about, it's faulty from the very beginning, making the entire structure fragile, no matter how much of it gets built. Okay, so we've seen how this incredible system works and how it can fail. But the good news is we are not just passive bystanders in this whole process. So let's wrap this up by talking about how we can actively support our skeletal remodeling crew. Two things are just absolutely crucial. First, physical activity. Remember those osteocytes, the site managers? They respond to mechanical stress. So when you put force on your bones through exercise, especially stuff like resistance training, you're sending a direct signal to them to ramp up construction. Second, you have to give your crew the right materials to work with. Calcium and vitamin D are the essential building blocks they need to get the job done right. And this all brings us to the most important takeaway of all. Your skeleton is not a static object. It is a living, breathing, constantly adapting organ. It responds directly to the demands you place on it and the fuel you give it. The choices you make today are literally building the skeleton you will have to live in tomorrow. So, I'll leave you with this final, powerful thought. It takes about a decade for your entire skeleton to be replaced, for that whole city inside you to be rebuilt from the ground up. The question is, what kind of city are you building? How are you going to take care of the new one?